Well, hi guys. So, just going to show you what I'm doing here. On one of my comment on Facebook earlier today, we were talking about what's the autofocus like in the dark and everything like that, especially on the RX10 Mark IV. To be honest, it's pretty crap. The sensor's tiny, and it's not all that sensitive to light compared to something like a full frame A7R4, for example. And there's one thing that the Sony cameras have that a lot of people don't really know that is there, or they don't know what it is a thing called bright monitoring. It's a really cool thing to have, especially if you're in the complete darkness somewhere. There's another video I've actually done with the A7R4, which I'll put a card up so you can have a look. So if you want to watch that, you can click on it now or after this video. I'll put it at the end as well in the credits of me using it, and it's absolutely amazing. Basically, it means, like the old days, we used to use a torch. So we'd fire, like for example, now you can basically see what you're going to focus on. So basically, I've got a torch and I'm aiming at my subject, which is an old pair of sunglasses which I broke. The camera's sat there on the screen. You can see, basically, they're in focus. But if I turn the torch off, suddenly it's dark. And you're thinking, right, okay. So the first thing you need to do with bright monitoring is just flick the camera into manual focus. And I've got it at custom button, no I haven't, I've got it on one of the custom buttons over here on the right hand side. Watch this. It's basically like daytime. So what that allows me to do is I'll move the camera down. Is actually, focus that close, there we go, is actually focus my camera in complete darkness. Well, it's not complete dark, I mean it's pretty dark in here, there's no lights on, but there's a light on further down my apartment. Basically it allows me to adjust the focus. What it actually does is obviously ups the ISO on the sensor to be able to see more, but also what it does is actually reduces the frame rate on the screen as well. So if you notice, it's not too bad, but it can be when it's really dark, almost like pitch black. I use it all the time out in the stars. So when you're in the dark and you can only just about see the stars and maybe some silhouettes of trees and stuff like that, turn it on, you can see the trees pretty clearly. I was like, what? How the hell? Absolutely amazing. So this is the difference. This is the full frame A7R4. Works incredibly well. We utilised it on the A7 III, and it wasn't all that amazing compared to the A7R4. So the A7 III was nowhere near as bright as this. And I just think that is just a jump in technology, and obviously the cost difference as well as, you know, the sensor or whatever. So, and possibly the quality of the EVF. I mean, obviously we're using the back screen at the moment, so that would have been the same, but it was nowhere near as bright. So obviously I don't know what the difference is, but obviously the A7R4 was working very, very well. So with this, it's a really handy tool. So if I swap cameras now, and I swap to the A7R4, sorry, from the A7R4 to the RX10 Mark IV, you'll see the difference, how different the RX10 is compared to this. So if you notice, I'm actually at f8 with the camera. Yeah, we've got an exposure difference. So actually what I'm going to do is just show you, just so there's no real cheating or anything like that. So even if I set it at 1/8000th of a second and f16, when I push it, it makes no difference. There you go. So I just thought I'd show you that. When we did it outside in the dark with this camera, I had the 35mm Samyang, which I've got on now, which is f1.4, but also we had the 14mm Samyang, which works just as well, to be fair. But when we had on the A7 III, we had the, I think it was a 35 f1.8 or something like that. Even that f1.8, it was not struggling, but it was nowhere near as clear as the A7R4 with the f2.8 lens on. So it's not, don't think it's down to the lens so much. I think it's down to the sensor technology and how it actually deals with it. So yeah, so anyway, I'm going to swap cameras now so you can see how good this is compared to the RX10 Mark IV. RX10 Mark IV does it, but I generally still try and focus with a torch. It does work, but anything that is quite far away from you is quite difficult. You also see quite a bit of noise on the screen where it just can't really deal with it very well. The camera is obviously 3 and a bit years old now, so the technology, where they've done a firmware update to allow this, obviously it's pushing its limits, I think, and I think that's what the issue is. But hopefully once we get the RX10 Mark V, this could be a different thing. There we go. So are we good for focus on that? I'll just stop that down a little bit to get it in. There we go. So basically with the 35mm now, and we are on the RX10 Mark IV. As you can see there, if I shine the torch along there and I push focus, it locks focus, no drama whatsoever. You can see the focus points moving around. But if you haven't got that light, let me go into manual focus, just show we are on the left hand side there, hopefully you can see. We're manual focus, and you can only use it in manual focus obviously because it's not auto focusing, it's literally relying on slowing that frame rate down on the EVF and the screen to give you basically almost night vision. It works quite well. So I've set it as custom button 2, and as you can see there, it works, but look at the frame rate difference compared to the A7R4. But what you can do, obviously you get peaking, so I can see where it was still in focus before, but obviously if I now adjust it, it's way out of focus. But as I bring it back, in and out, you get your peaking. So it gives you, it helps you get the focus point. So darkness wise, it's okay. It's a very difficult situation to be in sometimes when you're actually trying to do nighttime photography, and if you haven't got a torch or something to help you give you a focus point. I mean, quite often if I'm out in the dark and it's fine, you literally just turn the torch on, light up a tree or a building, whatever you're doing, focus on it, lock it to manual focus, and then turn the torch off, and then start doing your long exposures and stuff like that. It's very quick and easy. But sometimes you might be a place where you don't want to turn the torch on, or if you've got other photographers there maybe doing some similar shots and you're going to ruin their photo, this allows you to do some shots like this without any trouble. So let's have a look. So this basically gives you I don't have a recorder tools, Stu. What are you doing? Basically that's the there we go, that's bright monitoring off. So it basically gave me more than 30 seconds worth of exposure time at ISO 100, and it doesn't make any difference on the ISO on there at all. Basically, get a single shot, it may, no, even on bulb it doesn't bring, I can see just about, but it may make it a lot easier if I was just to push the bright monitoring button and suddenly it comes alive. It does work okay on the RX10 Mark IV. I have used it a few times, but it's nowhere near as effective as the full frame cameras, especially the A7R4. I don't know what it's like on the A9. I don't know what it's like on the A9 II. I certainly don't know what it's like on the A1. I'd imagine the A1 is a bit like the A7R4, bloody amazing. Obviously the A7 III I have had experience with on that, and obviously we realised it was nowhere near as good as the A7R4. It's possibly as good as the RX10 Mark IV. But yeah, who knows? I mean, if I turn off this light here, for example, so we are now in pretty much, oh, it's turned off. Ideal, Stu. Right, that's focusing. Then we go back to bright monitoring. The only light in this room is literally from the screens. The screen's white writing. That's bouncing off the ceiling a little bit. It's a very, very fine glow. I can just about see the glasses on the RX10 Mark IV. Let me show you the difference between this and the A7R4. So I'm going to swap back now. So with a very low light, maybe a dull moon, the RX10 Mark IV is okay. But when you go darker than that, this is where it's struggling a little bit. But obviously if I turn the torch on, you suddenly, there we go, a little bit of light there, down on the ground, is enough to help. But I can, in the real world, my eyes, I can hardly see the sunglasses. So that's how dark it is. I can see them as a silhouette, but that's it. No detail at all. So with these, with that screen, it's actually incredible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap cameras again and show you the difference between it being very dark. And that's with bright monitoring on. If we turn it back off, obviously that's my exposure difference. There, so obviously it's out of focus, but there we go. Anyway, let's swap over. Okay. As you can see there, I'm videoing with the torch on still. So we're going to go to, we're going to pre-focus anyway, just for the sake of the test. He says. Go back a bit, a little bit close. There we go. So as you can see there, it's actually focusing. So I'm going to go manual focus, and then the torch is going off. It's now, the only light is literally from this screen. You can see my finger going over. And I'm actually going to aim the RX10 screen backwards. So basically we've got two very dull screens, a little bit of light, but hardly anything. Nothing actually on the glasses at all. It's literally, I can just about see them with my eyesight. Really, really, really dull. So now when I push this button, it's there you go, absolutely crazy. My eyes cannot see them. I can literally just about see the outline of the glasses, the dark. I mean, I'm on a white surface, and all I can see is a dark shaded shape. And that's the difference between the full frame sensor versus the RX10s. So bright monitoring is an amazing, amazing thing to have. But obviously the full frame, especially the newer full frame camera, is going to work better than something like the RX10 Mark IV with the smaller sensor, which is obviously a bit older now. But it's still very handy to have. I've used it loads of times, and you know, it does help, kind of help compose your image. Not necessarily get it in focus, because you can just use a torch then, but if you can't see what you're looking at and you want to get it right, it does actually help. But you'll see a lot of kind of pixelation in the screen, especially if you're trying to, you know, compose on the sky and stuff like that. It's very difficult, I found. Where the A7R4 has enough, obviously, oomph to let me see the stars and everything like that. So yeah, different world, but still a usable bit of kit. So I just thought I'd show you guys that. It's very easy to use. Just got to make sure you're in manual focus, set one of your custom buttons up as bright monitoring, and you can toggle it on and off as you need. If you do some long exposures at night time and you've got, you know, I don't know, a lighthouse in the distance or something like that, and you want to be able to see it clearly so you can compose your shot properly, it's a really handy tool to have. So anyway guys, I thought that might help. Another little tip there. And yeah, so don't forget to click the subscribe button, the little notification bell as well. Click the like button if you liked it. And please share it with all your friends and other people you might know who are into photography or use Sony cameras, because I think most of the Sonys now have this bright monitoring option, especially the newer ones, up to possibly 3 years old, have it. So obviously some might be better than others, like we found out on this, but it's still a usable piece of kit there. So I'm not sure if any other companies actually utilise this. I don't know if Canon do it or Nikon do it or Olympus or anybody like that. So if it's in there, you might be able to find a thing called bright monitoring or something similar named. It might be there to help you as well. So it's quite a useful little function there. So anyway guys, I shall see you soon. There you go guys. This is how dark it is in here, just to give you a rough idea. One camera looking at another. The only light is that screen and the other screen casting light. And there is some sunglasses there, which you can see here. But no other lights in the room at all, and it's very dull. I mean, I can't even, from me where I'm stood right now, which is 6 feet, I can't even see the sunglasses at all. Can't even see any shape or anything with my eyes at all. It's that dull in here. And the camera can still, if it focuses, see that. Absolutely bonkers. Go into the real camera.